Hey there, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Hey, I'm Lori Donnelly. I'm one of the features programmers, and welcome to the premiere of Something in the Dirt by directors Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson. Since 2012's Resolution, the filmmaking duo have been making fiercely creative, genre-bending works that continuously shift audience expectations and stay with you long after the credits roll. The latest addition to their carefully crafted cinematic universe sees Moorhead and Benson returning to their indie roots, shooting with a skeleton crew at the height of the pandemic. This time around, they take the laid-back stoner comedy vibe of The Big Lebowski and Pineapple Express and inject it with the paranoia of classics, conspiracy classics like The Blowout and Conversation. The result is something uniquely their own, effortlessly floating between sci-fi, horror, and comedy. They're really just special, unique filmmakers, and I'm so glad that you guys are here. Thank you so much. Please welcome Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson.
Genuinely don't really know what to say. Words. We've actually haven't seen this movie really in an audience yet. This is our first time. One screening there was a technical difficulty. A speaker blew halfway through, and I couldn't restart it. It was really.
And the speaker it didn't just go out, it went the whole screening, and it just kept going for 2 hours.
But this is really special. Austin's always been a second home to us. This festival's always been a second home to us. A lot of people here we love tonight. We love all of you. Our fiancés are in the audience. Friends we love. Smiling Dave's here. What else?
There's this, you'll see our little graffiti around. We've been handing out these make movies with friends stickers that are with our producing partner and third director, David Lawson. David Lawson gets applause. Stop. No applause for Dave. Stop. But this is a movie that is both about and is fulfills the philosophy of making movies with your friends. And we come to a fantastic fest, and it feels like everybody's your friend, and also, by the way, everyone is kind of your friend because we all share the same. There's a reason we're all here together. We all share the same passion. So this movie is dedicated to your friends. And you are all our friends, so thank you.
Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson.
Can we also bring up Dave Lawson and Ariel Vida and Katie Simon?
That was wild. That was our first time seeing it. Actually, it's the first time the movie feels like it's done.
Dave, by the way, was our producer, but was also there, of course, on set with us every single day, and was very much, as I said, our third director. Ariel and Katie were the majority of our art department, who would, during COVID, drop off big ol' buckets of props and decorated the apartment and all of that. And we didn't get to spend much time together physically on set, but we would trade off and wave at each other through the window.
Was this a project that was germinating before COVID, or did it come about as a result of COVID?
Yeah, we actually, when we talk about the conception of this project, it usually goes back to like roughly 2012, 2013. We had this movie called Resolution. And off of that movie, we had we got meetings on stuff that we otherwise wouldn't have gotten, and it was usually like haunted house franchises or like found footage franchises and stuff like that. And they'd always say like, they'd be like, oh, like, you know, like just give us your craziest pitch and just like do you, like tell us what you want to do with this, you know, because we're like thinking outside the box. And then we'd always pitch it and they'd be like, that's completely insane. There's no fucking way we're doing that. But doing that like 10 times over a decade, ultimately we realized we were always developing this movie.
Can you describe the role that mixed media plays in the overall narrative and the visual language of the film?
Oh yeah, of course the film was always about two guys trying to make a documentary, and it was really important to us that it was a movie that still, despite its leaning into its low budgetness, felt like a movie. It wasn't a found footage movie or anything like that. And that was the first early conversations, but then a few things happened. One is during one of the rehearsals, Justin made just an offhand joke of when he mentioned something, he said, wouldn't it be funny if we just cut away to what that is for 24 frames? And we laughed about it, and then we kind of go quiet and we start thinking about it, and we realize, oh my God, that's the whole movie. That's the movie. Like, we have to do that for the whole movie. And so what that ended up generating, besides was the editing style of the film, was also an enormous amount of extra work for you guys.
294 extra shots.
Yeah, we needed to make all these clips to cut away to, which is partially stock footage, partially public domain, but mostly stuff that Ariel directed and art designed and actually fabricated that they made. And then of course there's also, I'll flip over back to you for the home video stuff.
Oh yeah, the home video stuff you see in there, obviously that footage is actually Aaron and I from our childhoods. And we both had these really intense stories of how that footage came to be. I'll tell my end of it first. Aaron had some height footage digitized, and I'll let him tell the story. He tells it way better than I do. And he's like, you just got to do it because it's so emotional, it's so beautiful. You get this footage. And I realized I had a bunch of high tapes from my childhood. And my mother had taken her own life in 2017. But I had this stack of high cassettes from my childhood that I hadn't really seen. And upon Aaron's urging for me, he's like, just like digitize it and look at it. And it was a whole bunch of footage of her like narrating my childhood. And it was like 6 or 7 hours of conversations with her that I didn't know existed. And it was this beautiful thing. And it was just like this thing where I was like, oh, I didn't know we had all of these conversations left and stuff. It was beautiful. But Aaron has a really good one too about his height.
I love that one. But yeah, there we go. But my grandma passed away, and so I asked my family to send every photo and video of them of her or just our family, and I would just be the archivist of the Moorhead clan, and so I got it all digitized, and I was alone for a weekend, and I put on Spotify and just started going through the footage. And first off, I will tell you, if you know that footage exists but have not yet looked at it, 100% of you should do it. It is a wonderful experience to see your family as it develops in a completely different life, especially if you weren't the one holding the camera. You start realizing other people's perspectives on who you are and who other people in your family are and what they choose to look at. And there was this moment near the end of one tape where my father, who is not a cameraman at heart, not a cameraman by profession, but I'm now rather convinced from this moment that he actually has something for it. He just, during a lunch break, we were all together, including my extended family, We were all together in New England on like a whale watching trip or some cool thing like that. And I was 5 or 6 years old. And he chose this moment during everyone eating lunch to shoot a really carefully composed close-up of everybody in my family, one by one. And it wasn't a close-up and then whip pan over to the next close-up. He actually cut between them. So it was like an actual little montage of my family. And I said I was listening to Spotify, and by coincidence, fucking Jeff Buckley's Hallelujah started playing. And I just died. Oh, sorry, I tried.
Next,
Just
tomorrow,
oh my
come
God.
back for the Q&A tomorrow, we'll have the kinks worked out.
It just destroyed me. And so the next day I was like, Justin, and then now we are coming back to their non-linear narrative. I was like, Justin, you gotta digitize that footage. It's great.
It does sometimes feel like an essay film with this manipulation with archival and found footage, and there's this manipulation of fact and fiction. Can you talk about how those blend, and then how you research this and incorporate it in? Anybody?
Well, I mean, I'll like kick it off by saying it's a really weird thing where I don't know. I think we all believe in independent film. It's like independent film, your duty is to kind of like tell personal stories and to make them bold and weird. And you usually do that by being highly personal. But then sometimes it gets out into the world and it's like, you can start to confuse personal film with autobiographical. There's nothing autobiographical in this film, but yet we're using our actual childhood footage. So it's kind of hard to argue against it. But like we have like nothing in common with either of these two people you just saw on screen simultaneously.
Yeah, there's a blend of fact and fiction, except the baseline is that it's all made up. So it's like it's all made up, and then there's also a commentary upon the fact that it's all made up. That is the big question. Actually, let's try this. Show of hands. I'm gonna ask 4 questions, or I'm gonna give 4 options here. Who thinks that 100% of the events of the film were supposed to have been completely made up? John made it up, or Levi made it up. Okay. Were they all completely real? Very good. Some real, some fake. Okay, perfect, very good. Mostly fake, some real. 1 person, our distributor. Okay, and that's incredibly interesting too, and also is exactly what we're hoping for. But anyways, that is without a doubt the responsibility of the storyteller of like a fact or fiction narrative was what we were targeting. So,
do you just want to talk about how all 4 of you collaborated together?
yeah.
My voice is literally going so she
No, Dave.
Yeah, Dave. She's all over Dave.
So this one kind of came about, like I said, we had some bigger projects that we were set at the beginning of 2020, and then obviously things happened and we couldn't quite get those off the ground. So we looked at some other projects and we're like, hey, what's the smallest we could do something? There was at some point an attempt of maybe just Justin and Aaron being on set and seeing if they could shoot it. They shot actually an entire day of rehearsal, quite well, where it was just the 2 of them. And then they realized, oh, we need 1 more person. And then as we shot the movie, we were like, oh, we need like probably 2 more people. But obviously, Katie and Ariel have been with us since The Endless. Incredibly talented people. They can do things that literally we're like, I didn't even know that existed. So we were putting it together, and then it was actually quite easy because we just potted up and quarantined as a group. Took all the COVID protocols, but there was only 3 of us on set, so it was way easier.
Do any of you all have questions for these guys? Yeah.
And would that the house remind me of the house in Chiquantic? Would the house in Chiquantic based all in that house or no?
No, the house in Synchronic, just because it was a very New Orleans sort of house, which was a very like typical shotgun style house in New Orleans, whereas the apartment in that is just where we actually live. But it made the commute to set really easy for us at least.
And the Endless, you'd have, I'm with Lost Voice, but like brief cameos in the Endless, you might have.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
That might have been where this.
Yeah, the beginning of the Endless is actually those same apartments.
So, yeah, right there.
Firstly, I'm glad you guys touched on the NASA time travel stuff, because I have a lot of theories there. Actual question, to the extent that you guys can identify it, given that your story is about an ever-evolving conspiracy, did you create any sort of like, did you have a moment where you stockpiled all the stuff you were interested in and kind of picked and choose, or was it like an exquisite corpse thing where you're like, well, this could lead to that, could lead to that?
I think that's the answer is both. It was definitely very exquisite corpse of the kind of stringing along of everything. But kind of what Justin was saying, where we've been working on this on accident since 2012. There's no ideas, at least that we shot. There's some on the cutting room floor that were in our heads that we thought were interesting that didn't at least get their day in court, in the court of John and Levi.
There's an hour and a half of this movie that got cut out of this movie. It was originally 3.5 hours long.
Yeah, there's a lengthy sequence about simulation theory that turned into like a sentence or two.
Yeah, right there. You had your hand up for a while.
Two-part question. First, in terms of the look, like what made you both want to have the look that you guys had? I had to keep looking like, wait a second, like, are these the same guys that I met a couple days ago? I found that really interesting. And what was the deal with the cigarette? Like, I felt like it was so intense. Like, both Levi and John both smoking cigarettes intensely. Is there some background to that? Like, what was the character choice in having that?
Such a good question. We actually, at the time, and still, we watched Breaking Bad like over and over and over, and we had heard someone explain like the insert shots in Breaking Bad as being what's the name? It's like not insert porn.
Process porn.
Process porn.
Pornography
Where it
of
was
doing
like
a process.
going into things and doing things and like really getting into it. And we'd never done that before. Our movies, especially our first one, Resolution, it was always like, well, this needs to feel like it's an omniscient observer, so we would never go to close-ups of hands or inserts or anything. And this was one where we're like, okay, well, let's actually use inserts to tell the story. And we were always talking about how John and Levi, that you could track their relationship via the close-ups of how they hand each other cigarettes. You know, like early on, Levi gives John a cigarette at the end, they're exchanging. And like we would shoot those things at a slightly higher frame rate. And that was the idea behind it. In terms of what they look like visually, also a really good question.
Also Breaking Bad.
Also Breaking Bad. Aaron was like, it was like based off like Walter White and
Oscar Isaac,
Oscar Isaac
from Ex Machina.
From Ex Machina. And when we
I did
worked on
eventually
Moorhead,
tell him that.
we worked on a job with Oscar Isaac later, and Aaron told him, and I think he was really flattered.
Or something.
But and then
Weirded out, flattered.
I had like some vague idea that Levi would like look like a cross between Mac Miller and Kurt Cobain. And I don't know if either one of those things are true or not, but I look ridiculous.
I feel like when I saw specifically your look, I was like, oh yes, that's every bartender in Los Angeles.
Well, I think it's you didn't look ridiculous, but our third co-star, your hair looked ridiculous.
Yeah.
Do you have any big inspirations as far as like found footage / bizarro stories like House of Leaves or anything like that?
I have a House of Leaves tattoo.
Fuck yeah! Okay.
Yeah, when we made the Endless, we actually, since Resolution, we've been sending these emails into the dark, trying to get Mark Danielewski, the writer of House of Leaves, to show up. And then one day he showed up to a screening of The Endless, and it was so amazing.
I've never seen Justin not be able to answer a question. He was like, my idol just asked me a question, and I didn't even hear what he said.
It was amazing. But yeah, without a doubt, he would probably be one of our biggest inspirations.
Yeah, sir.
All right, so Aaron, we talked a little bit before this film about me going. So there are Easter eggs for the Endless universe in here, right? and you're like, yeah, but we're not playing our characters from here. And then watching how different you guys looked, I was like, is that because there's going to be a crossover film at some point where you're playing all the different characters here? Anyway.
I don't even want to think about the logistics of that. Like, honestly.
Hang on, I do. Give me
No, 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 no,
Sounds really
no,
cool.
no,
All right, go on a little
False.
more.
Pass. Hard pass.
Start playing 5 characters.
The real question is, what are the Easter eggs from the end of this year?
Oh, you have to watch it. There's a whole, we literally, when they came back, there was a whole day where we shot just Easter eggs. And they're all throughout the film.
How much did art imitate life in terms of trying to nail down the title of this movie?
That's a really good question. You know what's wild is usually we have really long discussions about titles, but there's this like Google Doc that exists, and I think it was like early on where we were just sending like brainstorms back and forth with the movie, and they're very like stream of consciousness Google Doc brainstorms. And like literally in the document, it's just like, oh, and maybe it's something. Also, by the way, in parentheses, I think that would be a good title, Something in the Dirt. And it just stayed. Like no one ever like even discussed it. It was just like a.
Some more questions somewhere? Maybe? No? This is your 4th collaboration with Jimmy DeVille?
Yes, 4th.
How was that, the same or different or?
Jimmy's rad because every time, there's always temp music that we send over, but he always comes back with such drastically different music that we had no idea was absolutely everything that the film needed. So it always gets tweaked a little bit, but he's phenomenal.
So it's not the kind of thing where does he sort of like give you something and then you say yes or no or tweak this or?
Well, I don't want to speak for him on this, but I know that he's told us this is so he read the script and started writing themes, which is a new thing for us, which is pretty great. It's kind of a dream because you can start hearing the movie as you're editing it, and so even some of these like little themes he was playing with would make its way into very early cuts of the movie before he'd even seen it, and then he moved completely away from those themes. And we started working on the score in earnest, and it wasn't quite working for him. We like everything he does. We're just idiots. We just go along with whatever. We love what he does. But there was just something missing, and there was a lot of conversations, and then he came back to us, and he's like, I think I just need to go back to that original theme we all loved so much, which is that kind of like that kind of weird offbeat. It makes you feel a little sick. And he that opened the floodgates for him, and he just chased that everywhere.
Are there any other questions for these guys? Yeah. Over here. No? Yeah.
Any more like I know you put the endless and all you usually come a bunch like joke to the Christmas features. Was that the case for this one too?
I don't remember.
Yes, we delivered some. They'll be on the physical disc for the release, correct, James? Yeah, I got a thumbs up. There was a question in the back. I saw somebody's hand.
Yeah, this question is for the actress that played the teacher. No, how did you and Katie conceive of and fabricate the crystal, the thing at the beginning that hovered?
That's perfect because my voice is mainly gone and that was all Katie's genius. So Katie did all of it.
This is not a genius, but I was looking into 2-part molds. I have no experience with that, except that I was like, it was the pandemic and these guys had to have a crystal that was also a fractal, that was also an ashtray.
And we needed 3 of them, one of them to be on pole, one of them to be
one
broken.
was on a stick, one was like in 3 parts, which Ariel used a reciprocating saw. I thought she was gonna lose her hand. And then the 3rd one was like its full, shape. So I made a 2-part mold for that. And we couldn't splurge for like the compression machine that took out all the bubbles. So I was like, I really hope this foamy crystal is gonna work as a believable piece, but it works well with the whole, questionable reality.
But Katie did iterate on like a bunch of beautiful drawings, and it was like in 3 weeks or something. I remember like begging you guys to read the script, and then like finally you're like, it's gonna go, and then I was like, Katie, quick, draws them, and it was like the final refraction symbol. We did a bunch of research with Kim Behrens, who's not here. She'll be at the Fest, and then here's in LA. But our
great graphic designer.
The corner of our art department of like the cover of the Geometry of Magnetism, and it's like I think the crystal had to kind of come off of what that final the symbol would be too. So it was like you made a bunch of beautiful options for the ashtray, and then Kim was like, and here's what the symbol would be in the book, and it was like truly the team effort of like 8 people.
Another question over here? So I'm making that up. Yeah, yes ma'am.
I've always wanted to know, is there like a symbol or metaphor to the Russian doll chimes at the beginning and like looking at the
No, you have to take that one. That's
I mean, it's so on the nose. It's arguably bad writing. It's like John. It's like John will continue going down this path like a Russian doll.
I was told to make them progressively more jaded as they got smaller.
Yeah. If you actually look at
The
them,
littlest one looks sick. Like,
if you look at them, they just get like there's like happy Russian doll, and then they get just really sad.
They were filming inside, and we're like, make it. It would be filming and very quietly outside the window. We're like, can it look more like the first one, like happier, and the last one just even more sad.
the last one, the cheeks are like green.
We have time for one more question. Yeah.
How did your neighbors feel about the shoot?
they were actually really cool with it. We sent out an email to everybody because there's only like 8 people in that building, and I would send out emails every time I knew we were going to do something loud, specifically if we were going to do something loud at night, and we bought
Tender greens.
We bought tender greens for the neighbor directly below us, below Justin's apartment, because she had to listen to us trounce around, and we got pretty good at knowing where his squeak spots were on his floor, because it was always like me chasing around whoever was shooting, or and obviously you can't have the floor squeaking, but she had to put up with a lot.
She does. She's the same neighbor that when we were rehearsing the Endless, Erin and I were rehearsing the pushing the car scene at the end of the Endless, we're screaming, "You're my brother and I love you!" And she like called the police on us. I'm not joking.
So we learned our lesson, and we sent out an email before we started shooting.
Also, another neighbor that was really pretty down with us shooting. They honestly so into it that we wrote him into the script because we knew he'd just show up, because he always shows up. Was Hungry Dave, the squirrel, our hyper-aggressive squirrel. That dude will just run in our kitchens. He will just jump on our heads. Like, he is a psychotic squirrel. And we were just like, oh, we could just write him into the script. He'll show up and just stare at us and try to kill us. So.
And he literally did. We didn't have to shoot. That was shot when we shot that scene. He just came down and was chilling, watching us shoot the scene. I think he had notes.
It's a good place to end. Thank you so much to longtime Benson, Moorhead.